terracotta pavers. Putting in the final few hexagonal. I just customised a little trowel. So you just keep adding. Clean those off with a sponge in a minute.
Close the door and leave the light on. The morning light should be coming soon. Kick off your shoes and leave the winter and the pain it brings to you. Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind.
Yeah, so today we're taking a look at the finished paving project. Just completed. Terracotta pavers mixed with hexagonal tiles.
Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind. I offer peace and understanding for the things that you seek to find.
With a step that incorporates some existing tile that matches the windowsill. With an extended area here for the patio we set up.
Down the river's flow.
A bit of colour variation.
Nobody knows how down the rivers flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains?
So follow me along in the process of this paving project, where I'll show you all the pieces and parts necessary to put it together, including the initial design of setting it at the right height to tie into the existing house so it looked like it belonged here, and the engineering aspect of putting a very slight slope on it to keep the water pushed away from the house. The step we built and added to the front door, as the existing step was inadequate and at an inconvenient height. The custom mortar that we created to complement the colour of terracotta pavers. The extra coloured pavers we added to break up the terracotta colour and give it a bit of architectural style, and all the process of putting these things together. The first thing we did was we made a drawing with all the relative dimensions of how big the paving project was going to be, which helps us calculate the materials and the layout of the timbers which we use to screed our concrete by. Yeah, so using our drawing to guide our dimensions, we had to excavate the area, remove unwanted concrete and plant material, and then set up the drainage system and the timbers that define the edge of the paving area. And once all our timbers were in place and it was excavated, we could start screeding the concrete. In this particular project, there was pre-existing concrete. We just concreted over because it was so thick and solid in the ground, and seeing there wasn't going to be any cars driving on this, it was going to be strong enough. But we patched full slabs in between the missing bits of slab, and anyway, in the end, we created a nice flat concrete surface to lay our pavers out on. Once that was dry and set, after a couple of weeks, we started to lay the pavers out again, referencing our drawing, snapping string lines to keep everything lined up. Yeah, and in this particular layout, it was two 300mm pavers either side of a 500mm walkway where we're going to put the hexagonal pavers. And then there was a sort of square area that's going to have coloured pavers filling out a square in the middle. And the design for those pavers was something we sort of did on site and played around with the client until we came up with a configuration she was happy with. And then eventually we locked those in. Yeah, so today we're going to stick the remaining colour ones in here and those ones in there, lock them in, use packers to keep them spaced out properly. We keep them arranged on this plywood so we don't lose track of how we want them to lay out inside the square. And then we lock it in. The formula we came up with for laying these pavers was with a 10mm gap, so we used 10mm packers to keep all our gaps consistent with slight adjustments for the variation in the pavers. So as we continue to lock down our 300mm terracotta pavers to prepare for the hexagonal tile we're going to lay between, we continue to use our 10mm packers to keep the gaps consistent, and the cement is perfectly flat, so we just use tile cement to glue them down in place. Yeah, so we're sort of midway through paving out this area. Just got the design finished yesterday for this section and this section over here. So once all our pavers are locked in, we're going to move into filling these gaps with a custom coloured grout. We've got 10mm gaps to fill, and we've come up with a special formula. Consulting with my client, decided that this is the mix we're going to use to fill in between our pavers. There are many pigments available at hardware stores and cement supply places.
Nobody knows how stem the rivers flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how stem the rivers flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains?
So we've been laying out all the hexagonal pavers inside our 500mm gap between the 300mm terracotta pavers, and we're coming to the end of the pathway. I'm just going to show you the technique we use with adding the cement.
Lay your head upon my shoulder, shut off your thoughts and clear your mind. I offer peace and understanding for the things that you seek to find. Nobody knows how stem the rivers flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how to stem the rivers flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains?
So after getting all the cement smooth, which we do with our custom-made screeder, just take your time, go back and forth. The cement needs to settle into its spot. So by rubbing the timber back and forth, it smooths it out, gets it nice and dense, ready for our next row of hexagonal tiles that we have stacked neatly on plastic over here on my right. So we're putting in the final few hexagonal pieces as we get to the end of this pathway. We've got a nice flat cement screed ready. We carefully place them with the best side facing up.
Nobody knows how stem the rivers flow. Nobody feels the pain.
Keeping a 10mm gap between them. We just keep it even by eye. We take our time, set them in the cement, make sure they've got a good contact. And then using a rubber mallet and a piece of flat timber, we tap them down is all these hexagonal tiles with slightly different thickness due to the way they've been manufactured. Then we just readjust any tiles that were sort of pushed out of alignment by sapping them down. And then we're ready to move on to our next row. Yeah, so I just want to talk about the process of laying these kind of tiles down, or any kind of stonework, brickwork or paving. The trick is to take your time, not be in a rush. Keep your area clean and organised. Have all your materials lined up ready. Stage the area so you don't have to stop your process and break your flow. And I'd also say just try and enjoy it. Like, focus on each single tile or each single paver. Gently place it where it belongs. Tap it in with your hammer. Then move on to the next one. It's a very meditative process, and I find it brings me a lot of relaxation. And I sort of love doing repetitive, tedious things. I know not everybody enjoys that process, but I think if you give yourself time, there's something to be gained from being in that sort of state of flow. And you get the satisfaction of looking back on all the 300 terracotta hexagonal tiles you've put in, all in the right place. And then you can move on to the next part of your process. I already formed this concrete to bring this up to the proper height. And this is how our step is going to be. By cladding these steps with these tiles, because this is going to match this windowsill over here. These tiles were found under the house, which we're lucky to have because it helps match this new project with the old existing house. So today we're going to fill in between these two corner pieces I already cemented on with these guys here. And we'll go through the process of how we pack them out, using the packers to keep our 10mm gaps. Often in tile and stonework, you do what's called a dry assembly to make sure everything's going to go where you want it before you start getting cement involved to stick it to the actual concrete. Once we've stuck all these other tiles on, it'll leave a gap that we can custom cut this middle piece for, and we'll put that on later. These windowsill tiles were found by my customer, so they're very important for this project. And eventually the top step gets hexagonal tiles. So after having our dry assembly with our packers to make sure that everything is going to go in the right place, we're ready to start sticking these tiles on. And as I mentioned before, I'd already cemented these corner ones on, just due to the difficulty of trying to get all these tiles on in one session. Sometimes it's easier to break it up into parts. So these were stuck on yesterday, and today we're going to fill in most of the middle ones. And then as a third session, we're going to put in that center one that will be custom cut. Using a towel to keep cement off our terracotta pavers, we're ready to start buttering these tiles. We use a formulated tile cement, which is like a form of mortar, but specific designed for sticking on tiles. And we butter the concrete and the tile itself. And we have our packers ready to keep it at the right height. Putting the right amount of mortar on is critical. So it takes a bit of practice to have not too much and not too little, but with trial and error you'll figure out how much you need. Set the first tile in place, squeezing out a little bit of excess mortar to know you've got good contact, and then move on to setting your next one with a packer in between. Once you've got all 4 tiles in place, just check them all that they're sitting even and flat to each other with their packers comfortably tight, and then check with a level to make sure that they're all even. Once these tiles are set and firm, we can measure and custom cut the last center tile, which we'll put on tomorrow. So now that we have those front tiles cemented in and stable, we can work on the top of the step. Of course, we incorporated this top step in our original concept design, And so we had a rough drawing and then a more specific drawing to come up with a pattern that would enable us to lay it out in a neat looking way. So the idea was to use the terracotta tile, hexagonal tiles in the centre, and surround them with our 300mm terracotta concrete pavers. Of course, the size doesn't fit exactly, so that meant we had to custom cut the surrounding terracotta concrete tiles. Yeah, so we've laid out our pattern. Now we're just cutting our stones, or pavers I should say, to size. I'm just going to cut this one. Most of the tiles in this project are just used as they come from the factory, 300 by 300, but some of them on the edges and certainly inside this top step had to be cut down to an exact specific custom size. So that's what we use our wet saw for, cutting these pavers down. So after cutting the custom 9 tiles we need to surround the hexagonal tiles, we cement them down and let them set up for a day.
Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow.
So we're going to fill in the little square void we've left with our cut pavers, or terracotta hexagonal tiles, to match our pattern. We'll put down the centre.
Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain.
Going to set the height of the cement at the right depth for our tiles. So we've got a jig we've made out here. As packers.
Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind. I offer peace.
By sliding that back and forth, we'll end up with a nice height to lay our pavers in.
That you seek to find. Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain.
So take your time to go back and forth with our custom-made screeder to get a really flat surface, because you don't want to overfill this with your cement, or you'll get too much mortar coming up in between your tiles. Once you're satisfied you've got a nice flat surface at the right height, it's time to start putting your tiles in. We had to do some custom cutting on our hexagonal clay tiles to fit this inside pattern. Carefully place your tiles on top of your wet cement, allowing roughly 10mm gaps between, as that is consistent with our formula. Take your time with this, as this is a feature part of our design, and make sure everything lines up, using your eyes and nudging your tiles around to make it feel right. Once all the tiles are laid in, just go around carefully double checking that everything looks even. Once you're satisfied everything's looking good, make sure you clean up any spilt excess drips of cement. And finally, tap in all your tiles to make them dead flat with the surrounding terracotta tiles for an even surface. Allow the tiles to dry and set up for at least a day before we fill in between the cracks with our custom coloured mortar. Yeah, so after wiping off any excess cement you spilled with your sponge, keep it clean. It's all a matter of adjusting it with your hands and eye. Checking the level so it's flat. These aren't perfect tiles, so you just have to sort of do it by eye and feel. just work slowly, and then I think it's looking pretty good.
Nobody knows how damn the rivers flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how damn the rivers flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains?
Join me in the next episode. Here's a preview of what we'll be covering. The trick is to get the cement in without getting it all over the pavers on the wall. So I built a jig stopping the cement making contact with the paver or the wall. I just customised the little trowel so it's the right width, and then we can get a nice smooth finish on it. Filling in the gaps between, fill all the way along. These are our next gaps we're going to fill. We get our jig so you can get a nice smooth finish. So you just keep adding, take a little bit off the next, slowly but surely, and just keep working until you get it smooth like the other ones are. Get it as clean as possible. You just go through and scrape those off. Now we're going to fill in this with our cement colour.
Close the door and leave the light on. The morning light should be coming soon.
We moved on to finishing off the step. Yeah, so just keep working in all those cracks. Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.